How does that feel for, I guess, the Cowboy fandom and for you?
It does feel normal, just because there's always a reason to be on alert. There's always a reason to be panicked, to be nauseous. I mean, so in that sense, that really does feel normal. It also feels normal in that, it does feel like everything's going to be okay with Dak. It feels. I know the report of the second MRI freaked a lot of people out, but it is just kind of a confirmation thing. And so it's normal that, the world is freaking out about something that might not necessarily be a bigger deal, but that's just kind of the way it goes. And so it's par for the course. So it's kind of nice to see that nothing changed, and that football season is as we've always known it to be.
So has that become part of the funness of being a Cowboys fan? Like just in general, you never know what can happen. You know what I'm saying? Even if the team necessarily isn't winning, you never know what can happen when you're a Cowboys fan.
Yeah, something I'd say all the time is, you're never going to be doing your Christmas shopping. Like, you're never going to be that late into the season and have them be out of it. Like, they will never be the team that, last year was really bad, obviously, but they were still alive. Right? They were still mathematically alive, and they were still an interesting story. Now, granted, they around Christmas time, they were flexed off of prime time for the first time ever. And so they did lose a little bit of interest, but some of that's just, nobody's pumped to watch Andy Dalton on Sunday Night Football. But it is really normal to have them just be at the center of attention. And this year's actually a little bit more unique in that sense. I can't think of a year where where at least one team played in both the Pro Football Hall of Fame game and the season kickoff game. The Cowboys obviously last week in the Hall of Fame game, and then week one at Tampa on that Thursday night, and they're on Hard Knocks. So they are just like at the center of the NFL's attention right now, beyond the fact that they're already the Dallas Cowboys. So there is this heightened attention. They've been in California, which is, just adds to it. They're one of the only teams to travel and go somewhere else for training camp. And so it is very normal, to be honest, to have them kind of be dominating the stories and just be, the thing and the place that everybody wants to talk about.
Now, listen, I like to have this little saying where I say I put on my GM cap. And I love what Dak Prescott has done with his career. I think he should have been paid years ago. But really, to be honest with you, when it got to that situation last year, I probably wouldn't have paid Dak. I probably would have went out and tried to give me a rookie quarterback because there's so much money that the Cowboys are already spending at other positions. So if you were the GM, is it a situation where, you know what, we're close, Dak's the engine? Because clearly he's the leader. You saw what he did at the beginning of last year when he had to bring that team back at the beginning of the season. But would you have just been like, we're close, I'm sticking with Dak, or would you have thrown caution to the wind and looked at it as perhaps you may help your team a little bit if you get a rookie quarterback in there and don't have to pay that quarterback that big contract that Dak just received?
I think it's about more than being close. I think that Dak is what makes them close. Without Dak, they're not even anywhere close to being close. And so, we've been singing and championing Dak's cause, and praises for a long time now. And 2 years ago, when he was first eligible, we talked about, look, they've got to get this done. It's if they wait, if they drag their feet, they're just going to end up paying more money. They're going to pay all the money with the franchise tag, et cetera. And and good for Dak. I mean, like, at the end of the day, I want, and we all want to see every NFL player get as much money as they possibly can while they can.
Definitely.
So good for Dak that financially he ultimately benefited from this. But this was really poorly handled from the team standpoint. I mean, they paid him a substantially larger amount of money than they would have had to if they had just had some foresight, kind of like a lot of teams did. Like, people bag on teams that miss on the quarterback contracts, but the Rams are not worse off for paying Jared Goff. The Eagles are not worse off for paying Carson Wentz. Those things would have been wise if they had paid off, and that's why I think the Bills are smart for paying Josh Allen, and why the Ravens and Browns are going about this poorly for not paying Lamar Jackson or Baker Mayfield. It's football. It's American football. You have to. It's not a debate. You have to have this piece. I fall into a category that believes Dak is a top 5 quarterback, and a lot of people look at last year and say he was on pace for 6,000 yards and 60 touchdowns. That was never going to happen. That was, I don't believe that was going to happen. I think that things, even if he hadn't gotten hurt, would have regressed, would have gotten closer to the mean. But he has evolved, and you don't pay a guy specifically to be your leader, but that's why I really enjoyed the first episode of Hard Knocks, because I think people get to see he is people hear the term and the phrase like he's a leader or whatever, and they just kind of think of it the way they think of football. But he is truly the face of the franchise. I mean, he is the absolute unquestioned leader in a way that nobody really has been in a long time. The Cowboys have had a lot of, dominant figures lead their team, and a lot of veterans who've done a lot of things. Jason Witten's going to be a Hall of Famer. DeMarcus Ware is going to be a Hall of Famer. All these guys have had different points of leadership within their team, but nobody has come anywhere close to the way that Dak holds that. I mean, Tony Romo didn't have that, as much as I love him. Dak is truly unique in that sense. And so I do think that there would have been a sense of, a sense of not breaking, but there would have been a lot of upset people within the locker room, within the franchise, if they hadn't paid Dak. So I think all those factors considered, including the one that he is a top 5 quarterback, lead you to realizing the path of least resistance is just to pay him.
Let me ask you this real quick: is or will Dak Prescott become a better quarterback than Tony Romo was?
I think he is. I think he is if you look at the mean of Tony Romo's career, and that's what's so unfair for Dak sometimes, or what used to be unfair. I've written about this before. The way that people remember Tony Romo was in 2014 when he was incredible. That was Romo at the peak of his powers. He'd finally understood the game at a mental level, and was doing things at the line of scrimmage that we've seen elite quarterbacks do over time. He played 4 games in 2015 and, didn't finish 2 of them. And then he retired, obviously, because he missed then he didn't miss 2016, but he didn't play because Dak did. Then he retired. And so the last version of Romo that people remember is the greatest version of who he was, and so that's where everybody goes to in their mind. And that, he evolved to that, but it took a long time for Romo to get there. And he was still a really fine quarterback, but he became an incredible passer. Like I said, he became so well versed in kind of the intricacies of the game, and Dak is getting there. Dak is obviously a mobile quarterback, and we'll see how far he takes that this year, whether he pumps the brakes on things, because he spoke about that when he got his big contract, about how he realizes there's a huge financial commitment to him within the organization. But I mean, if you value leadership, if you value locker room culture, he has that in spades, over Romo. I mean, that part of the conversation is already done and slammed shut. And so, is he a better quarterback today than Romo was in 2014? Probably not, but he's certainly well on pace to get there. And football's not about, people make it about wins and in comparing them. I think the Cowboys are going to win the NFC East and be in position to win a playoff game. The next playoff game that Dak Prescott wins, whenever that happens, we'll tie him with Tony Romo for playoff wins as the Cowboys starting quarterback. So he's got a long way to go, and I do think he'll ultimately write his name on a lot of records that Tony Romo has at the moment.